Welcome to today's edition of the Statler Financial Radio Show. Your financial security is our business. Have a question for the team? Call today, 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188.
40% of Americans plan to travel more in 2024 versus 2023. Now, that is despite higher costs. Americans plan to keep their summer vacation. Big stat there. Welcome, everyone, to the Statler Financial Radio Show. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin, alongside Philip Statler. He is the founder and president of Statler Financial Services. He's here to share tips for that summer getaway that we're all thinking about despite all of today's economic pressures. Philip, welcome to the show. I'm looking forward to what we're talking about today.
Hey, I am too, Danielle, because travel is something that I love to do. And so excited about this segment and this show today because, it's like I said, travel's a big deal. And, we were shut down for so long during COVID that I think people still haven't fully recovered from their travel bans during that time period, and still going strong today, even as we get ready to talk about travel and what that means to folks.
That's right. And especially with everything happening, even though the expense of inflation continues to impact American households, as I just mentioned, 2024 is poised to continue the travel trend. Now, that's according to Forbes Advisor. So, Philip, I wanted to share these stats with you because it's kind of interesting. Like you mentioned, COVID, we were all kept inside, but this year, everyone's ready to get out. So 52% of Americans said they plan to travel the same amount as they did in 2023. Another interesting fact is that another 40% of respondents expect to travel even more. As you mentioned, I think it's because we're ready to get back out. What does this mean for retirees?
Well, I think that it means that, one, inflation, right, has definitely slowed some folks down when it comes to the whole travel thing. They've had to make different arrangements. They've had to make different planning options, sometimes to help cut the expense of those things, just because, other expenses and travel has gone up too. I mean, I'm planning a trip, and I'm telling you that the airlines are not giving away plane tickets like they did during COVID. That is for sure. And I read a headline this morning that even said that, airline travel is up significantly over last year. Unfortunately, airlines' bottom line is not, but that's a side note. But so we're seeing people travel and try to get out of town, whether flying or driving. And I think that for retirees, it's no different. They want to travel. They want to accomplish what's on their list when it comes to enjoying their retirement years. And so the problem is it's just become more expensive. And so people are having to make adjustments.
That's right. And what's even more interesting, Philip, is the most popular types of leisure that people are doing expected in 2024. Some people, the highest is visiting family and friends. About 46% of people are doing that. But others are going on beach vacations. They rather go to, let's say, Cozumel, Cabo, Cancun. 36% of people are doing that. And then right below it, people are going on road trips. They're getting in their cars. They don't mind the 5 to 6, 7 hour trip on the road. About 34% are doing that. And then below that, people are also enjoying the outdoors. They're going on camping trips. They're enjoying the trails and the outdoor adventures. 26% of people are doing that. And then the lowest type of popular leisure is city vacation. So it's interesting. Out of all of these types of leisures, what would you say is one that you would typically enjoy?
Well, I think there's two really that we enjoy. I was going to talk about this. And we just got back actually from a week over in Ruskin, not too far away from us. But we try to do a family vacation once a year. Take a week, whether that's in the mountains or at the beach or somewhere where all the kids can come down, the grandkids can come down, and we're all together for a week. And so we, like I said, just got back last week from that trip. And it's always fun to spend time with family and get to, spend time with the grandkids and that type of thing. But I will tell you that, we're getting ready now to take another trip. And every summer, Joyce and I try to do a sabbatical, 3 to 4 weeks where we just get away, get downtime. And this year, that trip is to Italy. And so we're preparing for that trip. Now, that's I don't know if you call that it's definitely not a road trip.
Right.
Maybe it's a city vacation because we're going to hit several cities while we're over there. But like I said, in planning for that trip, I can tell you inflation is definitely in the travel industry right now.
That's right. And speaking of inflation, it's like we're hearing a lot of people wanting to get outside, but how do we make sure, Philip, that inflation doesn't derail our plans, not just the summer, but let's also talk about overall retirement. How do we make sure that inflation doesn't derail our plans?
I think that, Danielle, what they have to remember is it's having a plan, right? Number one, not just having what am I going to do for this vacation plan, but having a retirement plan. What does your income plan look like for retirement? And does it have some step ups for inflation so that you can help battle inflation? Because we don't know what it's going to be, right? You could be retired 20, 30 years. And so obviously inflation is going to play a role in that time period. And the problem is we don't know what inflation is going to be. And we've just come off of 2 years of really, really high inflation that we've not seen like in 40 years. So up until that point, it had been relatively low. We may go back to lower inflation here in the next year or two. That's an unknown that you have to prepare for. And that's why I believe you need to have that income plan in place. And Danielle, that's part of our core retirement design, is to design that plan that not only looks at income, but also looks at taxes and looks at risk in portfolios. Look, folks, if you don't have a written retirement income plan, please give us a call. 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188 to schedule your core retirement analysis. Again, that number is 863-877-1188.
There's no cost or obligation to talk with Philip and the team at Statler Financial Services. Give him a call at 863-877-1188. Again, that's 863-877-1188. Philip, I like that we're talking about this topic because it's getting people more aware about inflation. And despite inflation and other household expenses, placing pressure on discretionary spending, according to Forbes Advisor, 72% of survey respondents plan to spend upwards, listen to this number, about $2,000 on travel in 2024. That is nearly half of 48% that they will spend a minimum of $4,000 throughout the year. First of all, tell us if this is alarming and how likely are families willing to adjust their travel plans in one way or another due to inflation?
Danielle, I'll be honest with you. I'm surprised the numbers are that low. Just what I've looked at when I look at hotel costs and gasoline prices going up and airline prices going through the roof. I mean, those things have just skyrocketed. And so, like I said, honestly, I'm surprised that the numbers are that low.
Right.
But again, it just shows that you have to have a plan in place. You have to budget for things like this so that you're not, skewed the other way and end up in debt to go on vacation. So I expect people will actually pay probably more than that when it comes to some of their vacations and some of their travel expenses going forward.
Today we're talking about taking that summer vacation. And even if your finances have felt the crunch of inflation, interest rates and declining stock prices are taking place right now. And while some Americans are not looking to pursue that summer vacation, others plan to take on debt to pay for their summer vacation. Philip, what does that mean? I mean, what kind of debt are families looking at, and can this really impact their overall retirement plan?
Well, it can if they allow that debt to kind of loom as they head into retirement. People use debt in different ways. They can carry a balance on their credit card. There's buy now, pay later services, which are can be skyrocketing interest costs in those. And then there's some people borrow from family and friends or a personal loan. So there's different various ways to finance that. And I'd encourage you to do it the other way around, right? Budget ahead of time. Put that money away on a monthly basis so that you've got the funds available. Because here's what you don't want to have happen. You don't want to head into retirement with a lot of unsecured credit card debt, personal loans, those type of things heading into retirement, because that makes retirement that much harder.
That's right. And as we're talking about going into debt, let's even share the stats that we're hearing from Forbes Advisor that they found 66% of people not planning summer vacation said it's really because they can't afford it. Young people are also willing, though, to take on debt to pay for their summer vacation this year. You have Gen X, that's 42% willing to say that I'm going to do whatever I need to do to go on this summer vacation. I mean, is that the smart thing to do, Philip? I mean, people rather have a good time. How do you approach planning with people so that their plans fit their goals and dreams, but that they're not going fully into debt to where they're losing all their money?
Well, I think that when it comes to those type of things, you have to budget, right? And so for those that don't budget, have to actually use debt, and they kind of budget in the hindsight, right? So they take the trip, they've got the debt, and then hopefully they have a budget to get rid of that debt in 3 to 6 months after going on that vacation. And so, that would be short term. That's not a killer deal to finance things in that manner. As long as you've got it in your budget to get it done in 3 to 6 months and now it's paid for and done. However, if you're carrying that debt into retirement, that is what devastates folks when it comes to retirement. And again, our core retirement design, Danielle, helps people design that retirement they always dreamed of by one, looking at the amount of risk they have in their current portfolio and making sure it lines up with the amount of risk they should have in their portfolio. The second aspect is taxes. And the third aspect is making sure they have that written retirement income plan, that GPS or that map that's going to allow them to do the things they want to do in retirement, but yet have the income to do it. Look, we call our core retirement design. Give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188 to schedule your core retirement analysis. Don't hesitate. Don't wait. Let's get that plan put together. That's 863-877-1188.
There's no cost or obligation to talk with Philip and his team. If you have any questions about the things that we just discussed or anything pertaining to your own retirement plan, do not hesitate to call that number, 863-877-1188. Again, that's 863-877-1188. We're continuing the conversation about topics that you should be having on your retirement planning list. That's coming up next. We'll be right back.
Needing a second opinion on your retirement plan or to see if you are paying more than your fair share to Uncle Sam? Schedule your complimentary visit today. Text VISIT to 270-201-7080. That's VISIT to 270-201-7080.
Do you actually read your financial statements, or do they get tossed in a drawer and forgotten about? You could be making an expensive mistake by not taking the time to look at them. If you're paying high fees in your retirement portfolio, it could be costing you tens of thousands of dollars or more over your lifetime. Imagine the difference an extra $100,000 could make in your retirement. Statler Financial Services can help you uncover any hidden fees in your retirement accounts. Call today to schedule a time to talk about your situation. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. When you're close to retirement, every dollar matters. Would you like to know where your money is going? Find out what kind of fees you're really paying. Statler Financial Services can help. 863-285-3815. 863-285-3815. Advisory services offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida.
Time to retire right. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show.
How much is left on your to-do list this week? What about that honey-do list of chores around the house? It's a mile long, right? I already know. The problem with long lists is that they can overwhelm you and cause you to shut down. So let's keep it simple. Welcome back, everyone, to the Statler Financial Radio Show. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin, alongside Philip Statler, the founder and president of Statler Financial Services. Philip, we're going to be talking now about the 3 topics that people should be having on our retirement planning list. That's what we're going to be talking about today. So let's break it down. What are the top 3 topics?
So I think the top 3 topics that I look at when it comes to planning for your retirement is probably number 1 on the list is income. Where's your income going to come from? How are you going to get the income you need to enjoy your retirement for 20, 25, 30 years down the road, right? That's a long time not to be working and get a paycheck. So we need to have a realistic, a written retirement income plan in place so that we've got that track to run on. We know where our income's coming from, and we're good with the numbers that are coming in there. The second thing is risk. Too many people, when they retire, don't switch gears. They keep doing what they've always been doing, which they put all their money in a growth portfolio. And there's nothing wrong with growth portfolio, but when you're heading into retirement, what you cannot afford to do is to have another 2008 loss hit your portfolio. I'm talking 30 to 50% decline. That's what you can't afford to have done. And so that's where you need to make sure the amount of risk you have in your portfolio is diversified properly between things that are safe, things that are at risk, and then the risk portfolio, make sure it's allocated properly as well. So risk is the second thing. You want to make sure it lines up with the amount of risk you should have heading into retirement. You got to switch gears. The third thing is taxes. I think people actually forget that there's a tax due when they take money out of their retirement accounts. And that number can be big, depending on how much you're taking out. And so we want to be cognizant of that. We want to make sure that you understand that when you pull money out, Uncle Sam is sitting there with his hands out, and he wants his share every time you take money out. So we want to be tax efficient with our portfolios. We want to be tax efficient with our income planning strategies. And we want to be tax efficient with our whole retirement planning process. And so I think these are the 3 main things that need to be on people's retirement planning.
Okay, Philip, so you mentioned income, risk, and taxes. Now explain, why should these topics be included when we're planning for retirement?
So I think if we look at the number 1 is income, but because let's face it, back in the day, people would have a pension. They would have Social Security, and then they would have whatever they saved. In today's environment, less and less people are going to actually have any kind of pension coming in. I'm going to say probably less than 50% of the folks out there are going to have some kind of pension when they actually retire. And so what that means is it puts a burden on you, the retiree, to put together your own pension plan, making sure that you've got money coming in on a monthly basis. So now we look at Social Security as a big deal, a lot of income coming in. Second thing is we've got to create our own income stream. How do we do that? Well, we do that through our income planning process to make sure that the people have the income they need. We make sure that it's adjusted for inflation to keep up with those type of things, even though that's kind of an unknown out there. But that's the big thing about income planning. I think the other thing is when we look at risk, again, risk needs to line up with where you are in life. And when we get to retirement, it's not the time to be having 100% of your portfolio sitting in the market. And so too many folks head into retirement and they don't switch gears. They don't change the way that they manage their portfolio, look at their portfolio. And that's one of the key aspects of working with somebody, that their primary focus is retirement income planning. It's a different animal. It's a different strategy than when you are working and having to grow your money. So that's a big deal when it comes to risk. And then third is taxes, making sure that, that we're paying the least amount of taxes, not necessarily today, but over your retirement lifetime and over the retirement and the lifetime of your family to make sure that overall you're paying the least amount of taxes possible. And so we take a look at that, and that's a big part of our core retirement design. And to get started, it's easy, Danielle. All they have to do is give us a call at 863-877-1188 for our core retirement analysis. It's a 30-minute phone call. It's you and I talking about things that are important to you, where you are, where you want to be, and what you're doing yourself to get there and how we might be able to help you get there faster. Again, that number is 863-877-1188 to schedule your core retirement analysis.
You know, this is the time to speak with someone. There's a lot of uncertainty happening around the world, but your retirement plan does not have to be unstable or uncertain. Take the time. There's no cost or obligation. Talk with Philip and his team. Call that number, 863-877-1188. Again, that's 863-877-1188. Philip, I appreciate you breaking down all of the things of the topics of a retirement plan and why it's important, because if we're feeling overwhelmed by retirement, or we're just concerned that we don't have enough to prepare for it, a lot of people have questions about this. What can we do if we do feel overwhelmed, if we do feel a little uncertainty about making sure if we have enough in our savings? What can we do?
Well, I think that probably, Danielle, the biggest thing is have a plan, right? Because one of the things that I've realized over time is that folks that have a plan are more certain about how their retirement's going to go. Obviously, there's bumps in the road, things happen, but having that plan gives them some certainty. And that takes away some of those concerns, because now you know you've got enough to get through retirement. And so I think that's the key is having that plan in place.
You know, there's also that question that many people have is, how do we know if we've saved enough to retire? It's maybe not the top question, but it's on majority of our minds, is knowing, okay, have I saved enough? The number one thing that we hear in retirees is that they are afraid to run out of money. So how do you teach your clients or help your clients know if they've saved enough to retire?
Well, I think it's, people a lot of times to me ask the wrong question, and they'll ask, do I have enough to retire? And that's really the wrong question. We need to look at it a little differently. We need to look at, what am I going to spend in retirement?
Yeah.
And once we know what we're going to have in expenditures, what does that look like? Then we can work backwards and say, okay, yes, we have enough, or unfortunately, no, you don't have enough, and we need to create a strategy, if we haven't retired yet, to increase that amount, or you got to be willing to live off of less income in retirement. And so, and the one thing I would tell people is this: do things in a realistic manner, right? Don't go in and undercut your expenses. I think, well, I won't have that expense, or I won't have that expense. Folks, it never happens that way. Folks end up usually spending more money in retirement than they anticipated. So make sure when you are putting together that budget that you are realistic about the expenses that you're going to incur, the amount you're going to want for travel, the things you're going to want to buy, that motor home or that boat to go fishing, or that travel trailer. Those are the things you have to be honest with yourself when you're putting together that budget, because that's the biggest downfall I see, is people are not honest with themselves when they create that budget for retirement, Danielle.
That's right. And it kind of leads you to the question of what are my options for generating income in retirement? So I'm not in this space of worry or fear. And so I'm sure you sit down with your clients and give them options on, this is how you can invest. This is other ways you can generate some income. Can you kind of go through those options so we can just remind our listeners, these are some ways that you can generate income in retirement?
Absolutely. So there are various ways when we create an income planning process. I'm a big believer in a bucket approach. We create buckets of money, where we're going to draw from, how long we're going to draw out of that bucket from that standpoint. Here's what I will tell you is that we look at taking everything and diversifying between a couple of different things. One, we want to diversify between things that are principal protected versus at risk in the market. We need both. And so that's the first strategy, is what does that diversification look like? And so that becomes a big deal. One of the things that you have to look at when it comes to income is looking at annuities. They were created for that one specific purpose, is to help folks create the income they're going to need over their lifetime. And there's been a lot of studies done now that have come out and said, look, if I just add a small chunk to the annuity aspect of income, that I can have a bigger withdrawal rate over my lifetime. That's a huge deal. Mm-hmm. So we need to be open to all those things. Now, obviously, when we look at those things, there are pros and cons to everything. I mean, you can be in the stock market, and the pro is you can have some great gains. The con is that, hey, you could be down 20, 30, 40% before you know it. And so that's a big deal. Annuities, hey, they may be safe and protected from downward losses if you're using index type annuities or fixed type annuities. However, there's some liquidity issues, right? You can't take all your money out at one time. It's you got a strategy there, whether it's a 5-year, 7-year, 10-year aspect, but you got to be willing to hang in there for that period of time. So there's different things that you have to be aware of, the pros and cons of every type of investment vehicle that's out there.
Really quick, as before we head into break, Philip, if we can just go into how is retirement income planning different from simply planning to take withdrawals? We just recently talked about it a little bit, but there's a difference in a retirement income plan than taking withdrawals from your retirement savings as needed. Can you go into what's the difference?
You're so right, Danielle, because here's the deal. I call people that take their money out and just withdrawals. It's like opening up the junk drawer at home, right? You got a bunch of stuff,
right?
You got a bunch of accounts. You may have this brokerage account over here, this annuity over there. Maybe you got an IRA or 401k over here, and you're taking money from something to meet your needs, but you don't have a plan to put it all together.
Right.
And that's where I look at a bucket approach or guardrail approach to what does that look like? Where's my money coming from? Month in and month out, and for how long is it going to last? And that's the question you need to ask yourself. Do I have it written down? Can I look at it and say, this is where my money's coming from for this period of time before I have to switch buckets? Folks, that's a big deal. And again, that's why I created the core retirement design, to help people design that retirement they always dreamed of. Folks, give me a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188 to schedule your core retirement analysis.
We like to remind you here on the show, you do not have to plan for retirement alone, so do not hesitate to call Philip and his team at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. Now, if you have a healthy balance in your retirement accounts, that's a great job, but a healthy balance isn't an income plan. We're going to explain that coming up next here on the show. We'll be right back.
It might ramp up or it could slow down, but inflation never goes away. Do you know how it could impact your retirement savings? Text VISIT to 863-877-1188. That's VISIT to 863-877-1188.
It's nice when you get everything on your list in one place, isn't it? Philip Statler at Statler Financial Services agrees. That's why he offers comprehensive retirement planning all under one roof. You shouldn't have to go one place for information about tax planning, another for estate planning, and another for retirement income planning. That's why Statler Financial Services was started. Philip wanted to build a company that could help families with all aspects of their retirement. Statler Financial is more than just convenient, they're knowledgeable and experienced. To set up a meeting with Philip Statler and his team to talk about your retirement plan, all of it, call 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Statler Financial Services, one stop for a wealth of retirement solutions. 863-285-3815. Advisory services offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida.
I want to help you understand some things. So number one, timing of your RMD, because they could potentially push you into a higher tax bracket. Imagine how fast your savings could shrink if you rack up penalties along with taking regular withdrawals and paying taxes.
Time to retire right. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Statler Financial Radio Show. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin, alongside Philip Statler, the president and founder of Statler Financial Services. Now we're talking about just because you have a healthy balance in your retirement savings account, that doesn't mean that you have an income plan. You still have some work to do. So this is why Philip is here. Philip, let's get into some of the risks that we need to be aware of to help preserve our income in retirement.
Absolutely, Danielle. So when we look at income in retirement, it's having that plan in place, right? Where is your money going to come from in retirement? And so I look at it a little differently than a lot of folks do. I look at a bucket approach. Here's one thing I know is that if you have everything in the market, then if the market declines, you have to be willing to take a pay cut over a period of time. And that's not a good place for a retiree to be. Now, I will say this, you need to have some money in the market. No doubt about it. A lot of folks have more money in the market than they should have. As a matter of fact, I'm going to say that when we look at a risk scale of 1 to 100, a lot of people come in at their portfolios that are at much higher risk than they should be in retirement. About 60% of the folks out there have too much risk in their portfolio. There's another 25 or 30% that don't have enough risk. They have it all sitting in CDs or all in money market accounts and they have no risk exposure at all. That's not good either. And there's about 10, 15% of the folks, they've got it right. They've got it exactly where they need to be. And so that's what you have to look at when it comes to income planning is what does that diversification look like? How do I have my assets diversified? And do I have a written retirement income plan? If it's not written, then it's not a plan. And you got to have it written down so you have something to follow to see, am I on track for where I need to be? And that, to me, that's a big deal, Danielle.
It is a big deal. And speaking of a big deal, I know we've talked about this multiple times on the show, Philip, about healthcare. And so what's interesting about healthcare is that the costs are projected to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars in retirement. I know we've heard this many times, but Fidelity estimates that a 65-year-old couple can expect to spend $315,000, that's after tax, throughout retirement, but that's not including long-term care. And I wonder if retirees are prepared for this. So this is why you're here, but how can we prepare them for an expense like this?
So anybody that's listened to my show at any time period at all knows that I'm not a fan of this statistic, right? Because it's a valid point, okay? Fidelity is looking at a couple living, I think, 30 years. And so if you take that math down a little bit, that basically says that you're going to spend, as a couple, $10,500 a year in healthcare. Danielle, I just ran some simple numbers. And if you look at the cost of Medicare, Part B, and then you add in there, the prescription drug coverage for Part D, and then you add in your Medicare supplement, you're almost at $10,500 for a couple right there. So I think they put that big number out there to get people's attention, and it does get people's attention. But again, healthcare costs are like no other, or just like any other cost out there. You have to budget for it. And it all comes down back to that problem of income planning, having that written retirement income plan and using a realistic budget. And these are the numbers that have to be in that budget is your healthcare cost. If you leave that out, you're opening yourself up for failure when it comes to income planning. And we don't want anybody to fail when it comes to income planning.
And I think this is why we need to also share the options for addressing potential long-term care costs, because anything can happen to us, God forbid, but, we may have a disease or some type of sickness, and we have to just be kind of prepared for that. So what are some of the options that you share with your clients for addressing potential long-term care costs?
So obviously there is the infamous long-term care insurance. However, when most people decide to take a look at it at their age, it's overwhelmingly expensive. And no doubt it is. But that is obviously one avenue to help cover and pay for long-term care expenses. I tell you who I see use that most often is folks that have no children. they will typically do a good job of planning and having some long-term care insurance in place. There are other avenues, though, that we can use to plan for some long-term care. One of them is life insurance. Life insurance, some, not all, but some life insurance policies will actually have a living benefit or a nursing home benefit tied to it. So that's an avenue. So that's one that I think is kind of neat, because if you don't use it, somebody's going to get the benefit, right? Not you, obviously, because you'll pass away, but your spouse or your children, your heirs will receive a benefit if you don't need it for long-term care. There's also annuities that have specific applications for long-term care. They may double in value or triple in value for long-term care. Obviously, you may not make a bunch of money on them, but they're there for a purpose, and that purpose is to help cover your expenses for long-term care. Now, obviously, these things all have some eligibility requirements. They've got other things you have to look at. So they're not easily accessible for some people. For other people, it's not a big deal. So, but again, it's part of the planning process. And to get started with our core retirement design, give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188.
There's no cost or obligation to speak with Philip and his team, so don't hesitate to call that number, 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. You do not have to plan for retirement alone, so you don't have to do that. Philip, as we continue talking about this topic on the things that you need on your retirement planning list, I want to kind of pivot here on the amount of times that many of us tend to overlook taxes as we're planning for retirement. I think sometimes we're going to wake up one day and be like, it's a dream. You don't have to, we can avoid it someday. How often do people overlook taxes, especially as they're planning for retirement?
Yes, it's funny, Danielle, because probably at least once a year, I'll get a call from somebody that says, hey, Philip, I'm retiring. Mm-hmm. So this will be the last year I have to file a tax return. That could be the farthest thing from the truth. Now it could be that, yes, you are fortunate enough that all you get Social Security, and so maybe you won't have to file a tax return. Mm-hmm. But that's not, at least that's not the majority of folks I see who have IRAs and have investment accounts. Those folks are pretty much always going to have to file a return and pay taxes. And I think that's what folks forget, is that, hey, when you pull money out of your IRA, mm-hmm. it's a taxable event.
Right.
And it affects a lot of things. One, obviously, you got to pay tax on that money you pull out. It can affect how much your Social Security is taxable. So we look at, part of our core retirement design is we look at, how can we minimize that? Maybe not today, but how can we minimize that over the lifetime that you're going to be here? We want to look at taxes not today, tomorrow, next week, but we want to look at them 25 years from now. Mm-hmm. Overall, are you paying less in tax than if you did no planning at all? And a lot of that comes down to looking at Roth conversions, looking at some other avenues that we can use to maybe pay some tax today at a lower rate than what we may have to pay down the road. Again, it takes some planning. It takes some tools to come to those planning processes. But I see too many people that they file a return, they're in a 0% tax bracket, and they're excited. However, eventually they're going to start taking more money out of their IRA, which may bump them up into a higher tax bracket. I hate it when I see people wasting a 0% tax bracket. You could be taking money out of your IRA, maybe paying 0% tax out of it, maybe paying 10% tax on it. It depends on, putting together that plan. And that's, I love to do that to help people minimize their taxes over their lifetime. It can be painful sometimes in the first couple of years if you're having to pay tax and you're not used to it. But if I can pay 10% now, I'd rather do that than have to pay 20, 30% later.
That's right. And as we're speaking on taxes, Philip, if you can just explain also the difference between tax preparation and having a tax efficient strategy for your retirement income plan, because they're two completely different things.
Two completely different things. You're absolutely correct. So tax preparation is simply a historic event, right? It's taking whatever happened last year and recording it on the tax return and sending it to Uncle Sam and paying or getting a refund, one of the two. And so that's the deal. There's no planning in that. That's just preparing your return. Having a tax efficient strategy is sitting down and being proactive with your planning process. That means looking at what tax rates are this year. What are they are next year? What are they going to be in 2026? Does it make sense to take extra money out of tax deferred accounts like IRAs, maybe some annuities, in order to pay some tax today at a lower rate than what I might have to pay later? And it's actually putting together a plan. And so that's one of the things that we do in our core retirement design is we put together a tax plan. How can we reduce our overall taxes? And if we can, eventually get folks in a 0% tax bracket. Obviously, we got to pay some tax somewhere, so we pay it up front at a lower rate so that we don't have to pay anything. Doesn't work for everybody. Everybody's different. So before you start messing around with Roth conversions and tax strategies, make sure you sit down with somebody that's qualified tax professional that can walk you through the process and let you know exactly what the tax impacts are going to be. Example, I met with some clients the other day or prospects the other day. They got blindsided last year because they had this huge tax bill that they weren't expecting. They expected some, but not what they got. Somebody tried to take basically 25% of their IRA and convert to a Roth all at one time. It was painful. Not only that, their Medicare premiums are going to skyrocket this next year in 2025 to the highest they can be. And so that's the other thing you have to be cognizant of, is that when you start taking extra money out, your Medicare premium is an income-based premium. If your income goes up too high, your premium is going to go up in the year after you file your tax return. People don't realize that. That's all part of our planning process, Danielle, our core retirement design and income planning process. Folks, give us a call, 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188 to get started on your core retirement analysis.
If you have any questions about retirement, do not hesitate to call Philip and his team at Statler Financial Services. They are here to guide you through a successful retirement. Again, that number is 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. You're listening to the Statler Financial Radio Show. We'll be right back.
Needing a second opinion on your retirement plan or to see if you are paying more than your fair share to Uncle Sam? Schedule your complimentary visit today. Text VISIT to 270-201-7080. That's VISIT to 270-201-7080.
Do you actually read your financial statements, or do they get tossed in a drawer and forgotten about? You could be making an expensive mistake by not taking the time to look at them. If you're paying high fees in your retirement portfolio, it could be costing you tens of thousands of dollars or more over your lifetime. Imagine the difference an extra $100,000 could make in your retirement. Statler Financial Services can help you uncover any hidden fees in your retirement accounts. Call today to schedule a time to talk about your situation. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. When you're close to retirement, every dollar matters. Would you like to know where your money is going? Find out what kind of fees you're really paying. Statler Financial Services can help. 863-285-3815. 863-285-3815. Advisory services are offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida.
Well, welcome back, everyone, to the Statler Financial Radio Show. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin, along with Philip Statler. He is the president and founder of Statler Financial Services. Philip gets questions each and every week about all things retirement. So, Philip, I decided let's go in and, let's check in with our Statler Financial Radio Show mailbag to go over some common retirement questions. Are you ready to get started?
Absolutely, Danielle. Let's see what we got today.
Okay, let's see. So we're going to dive in. We have one from Bill from Avon Park. He says, I'm about to retire and I'm wondering if I should pay off my home first.
Bill, that's a good question. And it's one that's can be easy to answer, but let's talk about it from this standpoint. When we talk about paying off our house, a couple of things we need to know first that I don't have in front of me. And that is, what is your current interest rate on your home? And how much longer do you have to pay it off? And that would be a big deal. And so we would look at that. And then secondly, do you plan on staying here for the rest of your life in retirement? That's something we need to know to understand if that makes sense or not to pay off your house. Typically, though, I would say that if you're paying 3% or less on your mortgage, or even 3.5%, then you probably want to keep it, because typically you should be able to earn more than that in terms of investment. Even CDs right now, you think about, are paying more than that. So there are ways that if you can make more than that, you definitely want to keep the mortgage and not take your hard-earned money and pay it off.
Okay, next question comes from Jane from Sebring. She says that I've heard that when you delay Social Security, your benefits grow at 8%, which sounds pretty good to me. So should I just let my Social Security grow since it's a sure thing?
Well, yes and no, because I don't know your exact circumstances. So it's hard to say, yes, that's the thing to do. Here's what I will tell you, though, Jane, is that you are correct. If you wait past your normal retirement age, which is for most of us 67, then you'll get an 8% increase in your Social Security for every year you wait past 67. Now, the opposite is also true. For every year that you take money out or start drawing Social Security before you reach that full retirement age, you lose sometimes even more of that. It can be 10% that you can actually lose that Social Security benefit. So, I say that it's part of our income planning process is we have everybody get us a copy of their Social Security statement. And it's easy to do. Just go online to ssa.gov and pull your own Social Security report. I mean, I did it just a couple weeks ago to see where I'm at, see where my wife is, and so that we can start looking to see what does that look like for us down the road. And it gives you what your Social Security will be at 62, what it's going to be at 67, what it'll be at 70. And so that's important things to know when you start the planning process. And again, that's why I created the core retirement design, and the income portion of that is really to help you determine when's the best time to take Social Security.
That's right. And Phil, we're going to spend a little bit more time on that core retirement design at the end of the show. Let's get to one more question from Joyce from Zolful Springs. She says that I've had this life insurance policy for a long time, but now that I'm retired, do I still need it? Great question, Joyce.
It is a great question. And again, unfortunately, I have to say it depends, right? It depends on your circumstances. If you've got sufficient retirement assets, then maybe you don't. But there are some in some life insurance policies that actually will provide, if they have cash value, they may actually provide a retirement income for you. So we need to take a look at that aspect as well. Some life insurance also has long-term care benefits. So we need a little bit more information to really understand if it makes sense for you to get rid of that life insurance policy. Typically, in retirement, folks don't need it, but a lot of times you're to the point you have a paid up policy anyway, or close to paid up policy. So, it makes sense to give tax-free money to your beneficiaries, because life insurance will be tax-free to your beneficiaries. And so that's a key component that a lot of people forget about, is the taxability or the lack of taxability on life insurance policies. So that's a good benefit to have.
Philip, I know many retirees have questions about all of these different topics that we're talking about today. And with the remaining time that we have, I want to spend a little bit more time on this core retirement design that you and your team have crafted, specially and specifically for retirees. Tell us what's inside.
Absolutely, Danielle. So our core retirement design, we worked hard to build this out. And so it starts with risk. How much risk does your portfolio have? And how much risk should it have based on your risk tolerance, your risk number on a scale of 1 to 100? Where do you land? How close are you to retirement? What's your age? And so those things all go into consideration to determine how much risk you should have in your portfolio. And I will tell you this, Danielle, of all the folks that I've met with, I'm going to say probably 60% of the folks I meet with have too much risk in their portfolio. There's another almost 30% of the folks out there who don't have enough risk in their portfolio. So it's not there's people that don't have enough. And there's about 10% of the folks out there that have about the right amount of risk in that portfolio. So the second thing we want to look at is taxability. What do taxes look like in retirement? We want to do our best to reduce your long-term tax obligation for you, your spouse, and your beneficiaries. So we look at that component. And then lastly, we look at income, because income creates a confident retirement. And so we have developed a written retirement income plan that shows us here's where the money's going to come from. Social Security, pension, and here's the amount we have to make up. Here's what it looks like. Here's where it's going to come from. We look at buckets and what bucket money's coming from when. That's our core retirement design. When it's all put together, folks are confident about their retirement. Give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188 to start with your core retirement analysis.
Philip, I always appreciate our time together. You always make retirement planning sound so easy, so thank you again for your time today. Now, if you have any questions about retirement, again, do not hesitate to call Philip and his team at Statler Financial Services. They are here to guide you through a successful retirement. Again, do not hesitate to call Philip and his team at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. Now, thanks again for tuning into the Statler Financial Radio Show. We'll catch you next week.
Information provided during the Statler Financial Radio Show is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice. Information has been obtained from sources that are deemed to be reliable, but their accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing company. Individuals should thoroughly review the contract for specific details of the product features and costs. Income payments and withdrawals from deferred annuities are generally taxable as ordinary income in the year they are taken. All investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. No strategy is guaranteed to be successful.
This radio show is a paid placement.
It's nice when you get everything on your list in one place, isn't it? Philip Statler at Statler Financial Services agrees. That's why he offers comprehensive retirement planning all under one roof. You shouldn't have to go one place for information about tax planning, another for estate planning, and another for retirement income planning. That's why Statler Financial Services was started. Philip wanted to build a company that could help families with all aspects of their retirement. Statler Financial is more than just convenient, they're knowledgeable and experienced. To set up a meeting with Philip Statler and his team to talk about your retirement plan, all of it, call 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Statler Financial Services, one stop for a wealth of retirement solutions. 863-285-3815. Advisory services offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida.